So if ever the elections now will impact negatively on an international trade, especially in South Africa, it's going to be a problem, and the unemployment rate is going to increase. We need to look at how we're going to invest in ourselves. There are businesses that are more focused on international trade and where they are residing in the United States of America, and therefore they are creating more opportunities. Let's speak about technology. The Huawei, the HP, Samsung, all of those brands, they are coming from the other countries. So if ever the elections now affects the policies, the regulations, and new laws are being implemented, now it's going to be a problem, because same as Temu, Amazon, and any other online retailing, they have already created employment. In the United States of America, there are elections as we speak right now. So we are going to take a look on how the elections will affect the currency or the currency strength and the private revenue of the companies that are there in the United States of America. And lastly, we're going to look at how the elections of the United States of America will relatively affect the Africans and parts of the countries of the African continent as a whole, right? So elections can significantly impact both countries' currency strength and the revenue of the companies. So primarily due to changes in investor sentiment, policy expectations, and the overall economic stability, right? So number one, I would like to speak about the currency strength, right? The currency, the political stability and confidence is part of the currency strength. So when we speak about it, we can say elections can create uncertainty, especially if there is a close race, contested results, or if candidates have vastly different economic policies. So these uncertainties can lead to investors to view their currency as riskier, often causing short-term depreciation until stability returns, right? And then number two, economic policies and investor expectations. So candidates' policies can affect investor confidence. For example, expansionary fiscal policies, increased government spending, or relaxed monetary policy can sometimes lead to fears of inflation, potentially weakening the currency. Conversely, promises of fiscal responsibility or investment in high growth sectors can strengthen it, right? So lastly, before I explain this, what do I mean about the economic policies and investor expectation? Let me speak about the interest rates and the monetary policy. So remember that the currency strength is also tied to interest rates expectation. If elections results indicate a shift towards tighter monetary policy or more pro-business approaches, it may strengthen the currency as it affects the foreign investment seeking higher returns, right? Now, what do we mean when we speak about the currency strength? We mean that you as an investor coming from related countries or coming from other countries like Africa, Australia, Canada, and Asia. So if ever you want to invest in the United States of America, and you firstly looking at the currency, all right? How does the currency strengthening itself? Okay, that's the first thing. What is the valuation of the US dollar compared to your your domestic currency. If the dollar is not strengthening and it's losing the momentum, obviously you're not going to invest in the United States of America because the dollar, it's expensive for you. You're going to to invest more in the companies, to invest, to buy shares, but you're buying in a more currency value depreciated. So what do I mean is that you cannot be able to invest on the country's currency that is depreciating. If ever $1 right now to the South African rand is 22 rand, obviously it's expensive for us. How many shares are you willing to buy? How many shares are you willing to invest? Or how many companies are you willing to invest in? Compare to how much you have. Okay, so even the company's revenue. When I speak about the company's revenue, I'm saying that if ever the politics affects the company negatively, so that simply means that is relatively affecting the company's revenue. The company is not willing to make more money like it used to because of the currency valuation. So because of what? The strength of the politics. So the politics is affecting the company's revenue, and now the investors' confidence now is being reduced automatically. Okay. Now, number two, I can speak about the private company revenue. So one, let's speak about the sector-specific policies. So when elections can shift regulatory and tax policies, affecting the revenue in sectors such as energy, healthcare, and finance. For instance, policies promoting renewable energy could boost revenue for clean energy companies, while stricter regulations on fossil fuel might reduce profit for traditional energy firms. Okay. The consumer confidence and spending power. Each and every country has its own statistics about the consumer confidence and the spending power that it has among the people who are spending in the retail stores or any other store that they are consuming anything. Now, political uncertainty can influence the consumer confidence always, impacting spending and in turn private companies' revenue. Okay, a stable political environment tends to maintain or boost spending, while uncertainty may lead to reduced consumption. Trade and investment or foreign investment is also being affected. Changes in trade policy, foreign relations can impact companies that rely on exports or imports. For example, if a candidate advocates for protectionist policies, companies that rely heavily on foreign suppliers or export markets may see disruptions, potentially decreasing revenue. So elections are key focus of FS investors as they bring a mix of potential opportunities and risk. So both currency strength and corporate revenue are often affected by how the market perceived and incoming administration approach to managing the economy. So let me just clarify this all together. When we speak about the trade and a foreign investment, we're speaking about imports and exports in an international trade. There are different kinds of products that we are importing and exporting to other countries. So politics will affect those investments, those international trades, because if ever we as South Africans, we are trying to export our domestic production or any product that we have produced in the economy, and the new laws that is happening in the United States of America now is affecting our exports due to new taxation policies, new international trade, consignment, letter of credit. All of those things are being affected and reevaluated. So in order for them to incorporate new policies, there will be a new political party that will be on a stand or in the position. Okay? So let's take it back to the consumer confidence. The consumer confidence rather, and the spending power now is affecting the company's revenue. In which way? Remember about the interest rates, remember about the inflation rate. So the spending power recorded in the statistics of 2016, or let's say in 2023, will never be the same as 2025 after elections. Why? Because number one, we're going to calculate the interest rates, how the Reserve Banks is incorporating their own interest rates. Now, interest rates now affect the spending power. Interest rates affect the mortgage loans. Interest rates affect credits, overdrafts, and all of those stuffs. And therefore, there are companies, private companies, that are earning so much when the Reserve Bank is decreased, the inflation is decreased rather the interest rates. They are. But then if ever the government or the new government or state try to increase the interest rates, now the commercial banks now are charging more on credits. People are lesser going to consume more of the overdraft. Okay, so which is something else that is now is affecting companies' revenue. And then when you go back to the international trade, more especially when we're speaking about the African continent, US elections makes the African continent to be vulnerable in terms of international trade. I will prove you to that. The US elections can greatly influence international trade with far-reaching effect on African economies. Changes in the US trade policies, foreign relations, investment priorities can significantly impact the African international trade. Now let's speak about the positivities. Now, in the positive way, how the US elections will affect the African international trade. One, new trade opportunities and agreement. Okay, positivities. Now, a US administration that favors the globalization may seek to strengthen or renew trade agreements benefiting Africans' economies. So programs like the African Growth Opportunity Act, AGOA, which allows eligible African countries to export goods duties free to the US, could be extended or enhanced, supporting African exporters and boosting trade volumes. Now, number two, foreign direct investment. So increased foreign direct investment and administration that prioritizes investments in Africa could drive more the US foreign direct investment to the continent, particularly in sectors like technology, agriculture, and energy. So this investment can enhance job creation, improve the production capabilities, and support export growth for African industries. Increase in the foreign direct investment helps Africans' economies diversify and modernize, giving local industries better access to global market. Now, number 3, let's speak about support for sustainable development initiatives. If the newly elected administration places a strong emphasis on environmental sustainability, this may lead to partnership focused on green energy and climate resilience in Africa. So the US-backed initiatives in renewable energy, for example, could enhance energy access and stability across African countries, contributing to long-term economic stability. So now, the sustainability in development. Now they said that this may lead to partnership focused on the green energy and the climate resilience. Them, as the US, they will be willing to invest back into the Africans. Why? Because Africa, we have sun, okay? We have sun, and for the more that they invent their businesses to create more of the solar supply to supply Africans and also to supply internationally, to invent globalization. So this it's a win to them, and they invest more on the African industries back. It's a win to us. Okay, so if ever they support the development and they initiate the development in the African continent, and we come along together to agree for them to invent their businesses in the Africa and supply more of the solar panels and it's a win, because they are investing more to the Africans, and therefore the more they create businesses in the African continent, the more employment they are creating for people who are seeking out for employment. Okay, now which now is decreases the unemployment rate. So global supply chain stability. So a global supplying, so which is that if ever the policies that encourages the global cooperation and stability, they can benefit Africa by supporting a steady and reliable supply chain. A collaborative US approach to trade can improve the flow of goods and resources, so benefiting Africans' economies is reliant on exports and imports and international supply network for essential goods. Right. So now let's speak about the negativities. Right. Now the negativities, let me speak about the negative ways on how the US elections will affect the African international trade. So there's something called the protectionism, right? Protectionist trade policies. If the US adopts a more protectionist stance, it could impose tariffs or stricter import requirements that impact Africans' exports. For example, African goods such as textiles, agricultural products, and raw materials could face higher barriers to entry in the US market, reducing demand and revenue. Increased competition from local US businesses could further limit market access for African exports. Now, reduced foreign aid and development funding. Should the US cut foreign aid or scale back development funding, African nations could lose vital support for economic and social initiatives. These funds often go towards healthcare, education, and infrastructure. So cuts could slow economic growth and limit progress in essential sectors, which is bad for us. So cutting the development funding for the Africans, we could lose businesses. Some other investors, they are coming back from United States of America. We could lose businesses. 3. Dollar volatility and exchange rates impact. The US elections can affect the dollar value as market responds to policy expectations. So the strong dollar can make US imports more expensive for Africans or for African countries, raising the costs for businesses and potentially increasing the inflation. Conversely, a weaker dollar may destabilize exchange rates, complicating financial planning for African countries and impacting the repayment of dollar-dominated debt. So the other thing is the geopolitical tension and trade disruption. So if the US takes a tough stance on other major economies such as China, this can create a trade disruptions that affect African nations relying on partnerships with either country. For example, sanctions or increased tariffs on China goods could impact African economies tied to Chinese supply chain of financial support. And this tension may lead also to delay in goods and higher prices, limiting access to key resources. So the increased market barrier, new regulations or standards for goods imported into the US could create additional hurdles for African exporters. Compliance with these standards can be costly, potentially limiting smaller African businesses' ability to access the US market and reducing overall trade potential. So, in the US, as we know that there's only two political parties that are people that are looking forward to vote. And as the US contestants, they are now currently voting and they believe to whoever that they see they believe to. And whoever who wins, if ever I see that if ever the Donald Trump wins the political elections, now it simply means that I think the way things are in an international trade between the US and the African continent will stay the same. Or if ever it's not, there will be some minor changes there and there. But I think that if ever Ms. Kamal wins, it will be a significant change in policies, regulations, and laws, especially when we speak about the international trade. So the international trade in the US country, it's a major role and is playing the very important part in the US and in Africa. And most of the US companies and investors are looking out to invest more on the African continent due to the way African continent is richer and rich in terms of mineral resources, natural supply of sun, coal, and any other things. So I heard that there are some other investors that are willing to invest on Africans to create a nuclear, because they heard that Africans, they have a problem in supply of electricity. Most importantly, South Africa is dominating on it. Okay. And they are taking advantages. So investors in the United States of America, most they are taking an advantage to invest more on Africans. Why? Because Africans, let me say South Africans, they are more on privatization. So they are not publicizing all the things. So if we can look at this, the US investors, they love the South African and South Africans to stay as they are, because if ever the government allows us to improve more on economic development, businesses, and improvements in our social economies, they will lose their businesses. And the more we create money in our own, the more they lose. Because when we create money for ourselves, we better to create employment, and then reduces number of unemployment rate. Now poverty is vanished, and now we're spending more on goods and services, and the consumer confidence and the spending power is now increased. Because of what? Because of the employment, we can be able to spend more. We have the power in terms of purchasing. Okay, so this is great for the Africans, and this is so much great. And if ever we can stay on that, on investing in our own businesses, in investing in ourselves, rather than looking for other investment that are coming in the foreign countries, we can better grow, we can develop, we can do things nicely on investing ourselves. And this is like starting a business. Starting a business, I know it is so difficult, but starting a business with your own money, or your own money that is coming from your funds, the donations, or your salary, it's way better than having the investor angel. It's way better than having a loan that is coming from the bank, because you are probably going to work under pressure, and pressure is not good, because you are the CEO, you are the founder, you are the owner. So if ever you are looking forward for you to invest in your own company, start by doing small money and invest back into your business. So if ever you are willing to consume up a loan, or looking up for an investor angel, they are coming with the conditions, with a specific conditions to say, we need that and that and that and that. So I think all the financial experts, economists and econometrists, they are scared. And even the politics and political leaders, all of them, they are scared about the US elections, because at some point and there is going to change and make a significant change in the African continent. I am looking on an international trade. This is why I'm making this video. I'm scared on international trade. There are trades that are there out here that are investing back into. There are businesses that are more focused on international trade, and where they are residing in the United States of America, and therefore they are creating more opportunities. Let's speak about the technology. The Huawei, the HP, Samsung, all of those brands, they are coming from the other countries. So if ever the elections now affects the policies, the regulations, and new laws are being implemented, now it's going to be a problem, because same as Temu, Amazon, and any other online retailing, they have already created employment in in South Africa particularly. So if ever the elections now will impact negatively on an international trade, especially in South Africa, it's going to be a problem, and the unemployment rate is going to increase. So I say we need to look at how we're going to invest in ourselves. We're going to have to look on how we invest on ourselves, how we start businesses, and on how are we going to get money, invest back into ourselves. And if you like this video, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. If ever we create on the next video, we're going to make a video on the geopolitical and parts of international impact, sanctions, price, the consignment, and all of those stuff that are related in the international trade, and how the US elections will relatively affect more specifically the South Africans. Cheers.